All right, let's talk about careers in the real estate space. When we talk about real estate and the real estate business, the industry is one of specialization where multiple different transaction providers come together and support the function of real estate. So, for example, we've got a wide range of disciplines, including brokerage, appraisal, property management, financing, subdivision and development, home inspection, counseling, and what you're doing right now, education. Real estate is all around us, whether it's a family buying their first home, a developer creating a new subdivision, or an investor purchasing a commercial property. Every transaction, large or small, requires the expertise of professionals across multiple specializations. At the same time, and value and activity of real estate are governed by the powerful economic forces of supply and demand. This lesson introduces you to the career paths available in the real estate space and explains how supply and demand shape the marketplace. What you'll learn is one, the list of various careers available in the real estate industry, and then two, explain the factors of supply and demand in the real estate market. Specializations within the real estate industry, we're going to start with brokerage. Um, Many of you know me personally, and I own a separate real estate brokerage. What is brokerage? Brokerage is the business of bringing buyers and sellers together in a real estate transaction. Think agents and brokers who help buyers buy and sellers sell, more of an intermediary or a middleman. All right. So it's the business of bringing the buyers and sellers, landlords and tenants together in a transaction. It involves brokers, which are licensed professionals authorized to conduct real estate transaction services for compensation. Key skills, negotiation, marketing, and client services. All right, moving along. Appraisal. Appraisal involves developing an opinion of a property's market value as of a specific date. So when we're thinking about appraisers, we're thinking about the professional who determines the property value during the transaction. All right. So what is the appraisal? It's developing an opinion of a property's market value using established methods and professional judgment. All right. So if you're remembering from pre-license, the established methods is USPAP, the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice. Why it matters. Lenders require appraisals for most financed sales. So the appraisal function is almost like the guardian of value to make sure that when the bank loans and what they loan is being protected. All right. And then the requirements is state licensing or certification and specialized training. Let's talk about property management. Property management focuses on protecting an owner's investment and maximizing their return. When we think about this, we should think about individuals or companies who manage rental properties on behalf of others, and those others are the owners of that property. What is it? It's managing property on behalf of the owner, including handling the maintenance, rent collection, and tenant relations, or none of those things. So, for example, you might have a landlord that says, I want to handle the maintenance or I want to handle rent collection. I just want you to place the renter. So that's all subject to specific agreements once you're actually managing that property. But that's what I want you to think about in helping you remember the concept. Okay. Their goal, a property manager's goal, is to protect the owner's investment and maximize their return. All right. There are some professional support organizations for property management, that specialization, such as the Institute of Real Estate Management, um, and the Building Owners and Managers Association. All right. We're going to talk about financing. Financing is the business of arranging or providing funds for real estate transactions. Think banks, lenders, mortgage loan originators who provide mortgage loans. All right. So, what is it? It's providing the funds for real estate purchases, usually through loans secured by mortgage or deeds of trust. Who's involved? Banks, credit unions, mortgage bankers and brokers. And what licensing is involved? The mortgage loan originators must qualify under the nationwide multiple listing, multi-state licensing system, or NMLS. All right, not to be confused with the MLS, um, which we'll get into a little bit later. Subdivision development. When you ride by a master plan subdivision or a subdivision such as Green Tree Lakes, Bay Meadows, that's the specialization of subdivision and development. This area involves dividing large parcels of land into smaller lots and constructing improvements such as roads, utilities, or buildings or homes. Think developers turning raw land into neighborhoods or commercial sites. Okay. So subdivision is dividing large tracts into smaller parcels. Development is constructing improvements, roads, utilities, homes, commercial structures. And then impact shapes the neighborhoods and expands housing and commercial supply. All right. Some additional career paths in real estate are home inspection, education, counseling, and then a couple of other areas. We're going to get into home inspection first. When we talk about home inspection, that involves conducting a detailed visual examination of a property's condition, including its structures, systems, and site, and preparing a report for buyers or homeowners. When we think about this, I want you to think about somebody going out and evaluating the property before the purchase, where they're checking the roof, they're checking the plumbing, they're checking the structure to make sure it's sufficient. What it is, it's a professional evaluation of a property's condition, its structure, systems, and site. Why it matters? It helps buyers make informed decisions. The requirements for a home inspector vary by state and requires licensing and continuing education in some states. In Georgia specifically, there is no formal licensing process for a home inspector. When you see an inspector say they're licensed, they're usually referring to a business license by the local licensing municipality, so like the city government, but there's no licensed home inspector license in the state of Georgia. Okay. Counseling. Real estate counseling is providing clients with expert, unbiased advice to support sound investment decisions. So when we think about counseling or consultants, it's people who offer professional guidance on real estate matters. All right. It's providing independent advice to help clients make sound and informed real estate decisions. The focus is more investment planning as far as property use and risk analysis. All right. The skills are high level expertise and judgment. So you guys coming into the real estate space would not necessarily be at the counseling level right out the gate. Through years of experience and practice, you may become counselors. Um, but right now, you're kind of getting your feet wet and learning. And so, for the counseling aspect of that specialization, that usually comes with more years of experience and a higher degree of education. Education, what you're doing right now, what I'm doing is you know that I'm a broker, but you also know that I'm a teacher and instructor and school director. And so that's a separate specialization that is referred to as education. Education focuses on providing learning opportunities for both real estate professionals and consumers. When we think about that, just think about me, instructors in schools that teach real estate courses. What it is, it's teaching real estate principles to licensees and consumers. What's involved, who's involved rather, is colleges, universities, trade schools, and private providers. The requirements, continuing education is essential for license renewal. Um, as an instructor, I'm required to complete continuing education for the instructional aspect of it, just as well as the brokerage aspect. And then let's talk about a couple of other areas. Real estate expertise is also needed in fields such as law, government, and corporate real estate. So we've got some related careers that you're going to come in contact with. For example, real estate attorneys. You're going to meet closing attorneys because in Georgia, we're required to close with a licensed attorney. All right, land use planners, tax assessors, surveyors, and title and escrow professionals. So, for example, where you see title and escrow, um, in the Florida market, title and escrow is who closes the transaction versus the real estate attorneys as we do in Georgia. All right. So a key point, Real estate is not just about selling homes. It's a multifaceted industry with careers and opportunities ranging from sales and management to finance, law, and education. All right. All right. Let's talk about types of real property for a minute. Um, there are so many different types of real estate. We've got residential, commercial, mixed use. When we talk about residential property, we're talking about properties designed for people to live in. This includes single family homes, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, sometimes called quadruplexes or quadplexes, apartments, townhomes, condos, mobile or manufactured and modular housing. Further, it's property which that it can be used for specific residential purposes such as retirement homes, vacation property, or other common or different parts of the country. When we think about this, I want you to think about where people make their homes. So when we think residential, think where people make their homes. Okay. Commercial are properties used for business purposes, such as offices, retail stores, shopping centers, and hospitals. Further, it's specialized facilities such as marinas, air parks, and other mixed use properties. When we think about that, I want you to think about buildings where businesses or business activity generate income. All right. So if you know where my brokerage office is, then that's commercial. All right. So commercial, think about it this way too, is if we're saying residential is where the people make their homes, commercial, think about where businesses make their homes. All right. Mixed use. Mixed use is properties that combine both residential and commercial uses in a single development. Think an apartment building with shops or offices on the ground floor. So here locally, what I want you to think about is where Hardware House is or where Pearls is, where you have shops at the street level and then apartments upstairs. Okay, that's a mixed use property example. All right. A couple of more types of real property are industrial, agricultural, or special purpose. So when we're talking about special purpose, we're talking about properties that are designed for a specific use that doesn't fit typical residential, commercial, or industrial categories. A prime example of a special purpose property is a house of worship or a church, schools, cemeteries, hospitals, or government buildings. All right. Think about property that's unique, or of a limited use or a limited scope of use. All right. So, for example, um, when you see usually or typically a church property, that's a very limited use property. It might can be converted to be used as something else. But when you see a church, you see a church. Okay. Agricultural are properties used for farming or ranching, including crops, livestock, or orchards, hatcheries, vineyards, or timberland. Okay, so think land that produces food, fiber, or other natural products. All right, so we're in South Georgia. Um, we've got a agribusiness here that's specific to um, vineyards. All right, that's an agricultural property. All right. Industrial are properties used for manufacturing, production, storage, or distribution of goods. Examples include factories, warehouses, power plants, and distribution centers. So when you think about that, it's where products are made, stored, or shipped. All right. So we're going to talk about types of housing um, for a moment. Excuse me. A single family detached house. This is the classic standalone house that most people think of. Excuse me. It's a structure built on its own lot of land, and it doesn't share any walls or roofs with other houses. The key feature is privacy and ownership of the land or the yard. All right. An apartment building is a large building that contains multiple separate rental housing units, apartments. The entire building is usually owned by a single person or company, the landlord, and tenants pay rent to live in their individual units. All right. Key features With of a rental unit of an apartment building are rental units where the landlord handles maintenance. All right. So typically that tenant does not handle any maintenance. The landlord handles all of that. With a condo, think of a condo like an apartment, but where you own the interior unit itself that you dwell in. You do not own the land underneath or the exterior walls. Instead, you share ownership of common areas like hallways, pools, or gyms with all the other condo owners. You typically pay a monthly HOA fee for the maintenance of these common areas. Key features: individual ownership of the unit interior plus shared ownership of the common elements. All right. We're going to get into co-ops, planned unit developments, mixed use developments, factory built housing, and converted use property. I'm going to start with converted use property because I kind of touched on that a moment ago as far as the example with the church. Converted use properties, these are buildings that were originally designed for one purpose but have been renovated and adapted for residential use. Examples include old factories, schools, churches, or warehouses that have been transformed into loft apartments or condos. Key features: adaptive reuse of non residential buildings into housing. When we think about a converted use property, I'm going to take you to New York, for example. Um, if you're ever in New York, you will see in certain areas some of the old warehouses that are now trendy upscale lofts, right? Um, Most typically, that is a converted use property. It was built as a factory or some other industrial or commercial purpose, and then it's been converted to residential housing. Okay. Factory built housing, that is a fancy word for a mobile manufactured or modular home. It's a broad term for dwellings that are constructed largely off-site in a factory and then transported to the building site for assembly or placement. This includes modular homes built in sections and assembled on a traditional foundation, and manufactured homes, which were formerly called mobile homes, built to federal HUD code and placed on a permanent chassis. All right. Key features: construction occurs primarily in a climate controlled factory setting. All right. So when you think of factory built housing, you might have some brands that come to mind, such as a manufacturer, Fleetwood Homes, or a Scott built mobile home, which sometimes just designates the different types of quality associated with the construction. All right. Cooperative or co op housing. This is a unique ownership structure. Instead of owning your specific unit, you buy shares of stock in a corporation that owns the entire building. The amount of stock you own corresponds to the size of the unit you get to live in. You are essentially a tenant shareholder, not a direct real estate owner. Key features: ownership is through shares in a corporation, residents are shareholders. All right. With a planned unit development, or a PUD, as it's called, is a special type of zoning that allows a developer to build a mix of housing, so like houses, condos, or townhomes, and other uses, sometimes commercial, that could be a grocery store, a nail salon, a real estate office, or an insurance company, um, within a specific area, often with shared amenities and green spaces. It allows for flexibility in design that might not be allowed under traditional zoning rules. Some key features: mixed housing types and non residential uses clustered together in a comprehensively planned community. So, usually, a planned unit development or a PUD is, for lack of a better phrase, or really a better phrase, is all inclusive housing. It's where you can hit the grocery store and go home. It's where you can get your taxes done and go home without ever leaving the general vicinity. Okay. Mixed use development, a building or complex that combines residential spaces, apartments or condos with commercial spaces, stores, restaurants, and offices in the same physical structure. This is designed to create walkable, vibrant communities where people can live, work, and shop in one place. Okay. So the key features: it's a combination of residential and commercial spaces, vertically or horizontally in a single project. All right. So from that, you see how it resembles a PUD. It's just slight variations. All right. So the slight variation with the mixed use development is it is a single project. All right. Real estate license tiers and types. We're going to talk about salesperson, associate broker, and broker. So let's get into salespersons. A salesperson's license is, first off, a salesperson, their role, um, they're known as an agent or sales associate. It's an entry level position within the real estate space. There's no experience requirement to be a salesperson. That's it's the entry level. Okay. In Georgia, you must be 18 years old. You must provide proof that you are the holder of you are a high school graduate or the holder of a certificate of equivalency or a GED. All right. You have to take specific real estate education, 75 hours, or there are some other um, educational avenues to bypass the 75 hours, which is successfully completing a minimum of 10 quarter hours or 6 semester hours of either coursework eligible for a major in real estate or provide proof of completion of at least 75 hours in another state outside of the state of Georgia. Okay. There's a background check requirement. You must submit an application and you must pass both a course final exam and your state real estate exam. Supervision, a salesperson cannot operate independently and must be employed by a licensed broker. Okay. A broker associate or an associate broker, I want you to think about this role um, as a hybrid because it is a hybrid. It is where you are functioning with the license of a broker, but with the responsibility of an agent. Okay. A broker associate or an associate broker is someone who has met the qualifications to become a broker, but chooses to work under another broker rather than operating independently. This is often seen as a traditional step before becoming a full qualifying broker. We're going to talk about that term qualifying broker a little bit later. But right now, I want you to understand that qualifying broker means responsible party, and they are responsible directly for the supervision of the salespersons and associate brokers in their firm. All right. Experience for an associate broker. There is an experience requirement for an associate broker or broker. All right. Where I shared with you that there's none for salesperson, a broker associate, because they are essentially a broker, just not acting as a broker, are required to have experience, right? Because they're a higher license classification. The state wants to make sure that they're knowledgeable of what they're they're knowledgeable of the business and what's required of them in the business. Okay. So experience for an associate broker is it requires several years of experience, 3 years of active real estate experience within the last 5 years immediately preceding the application is required. Okay. They must pass a 60-hour broker pre-license course, a proctored final exam, and pass the state administered broker licensing exam. Their responsibility can vary because they might supervise some function of the office for which they're a part of. So, an associate broker who holds a broker level license, but chooses to work under the supervision of a qualifying broker, which sometimes is called a supervising or sponsoring broker. Associate brokers may perform many of the same functions, which is managing transactions, advising agents, and ensuring compliance, but they do not operate their own brokerage. They do that for another broker. All right, let's talk about a broker. A broker is a real estate professional who holds the highest level of licensure and is authorized to operate independently. Brokers can open and manage their own real estate firms. hire salespeople and associate brokers, and oversee all aspects of the business. So the experience requirements are the same as the associate broker. 3 years of active real estate experience within the last 5 years, immediately preceding the application to qualify for a broker's license. The education is the same. The responsibility is greater. All right. A broker may operate independently and manage a real estate firm, while an associate broker holds a broker's license but chooses to work under the supervision of a qualifying broker, also called a supervising or sponsoring broker. Associate brokers often perform similar duties, such as managing the transactions, advising agents, and ensuring compliance, but do not operate their own brokerage. Brokers carry a higher level of responsibility than salespeople or associate brokers. So, some key differences between the tiers is supervision, experience and education, and responsibilities. So, as far as supervision, salespersons must work under a broker, while associate brokers can work under another broker or manage a team, and brokers can work independently. All right. Experience and education. The progression from salesperson to broker involves gaining experience and additional education, and more complex knowledge of the real estate industry is required at each level. Responsibilities. A broker has more authority and responsibility, including the ability to run a real estate business and manage other agents, while salespeople and associate brokers may focus more on client-facing duties. So they're showing houses, they're coordinating pre-approvals with their lender, such as that, things such as that. The pathway from salesperson to broker is a journey of gaining more experience, education, and responsibility. Each step provides more autonomy and potential for leadership within the industry. All right. So, understanding broker roles. To broker real estate means to act as an intermediary between buyer and seller or landlord and tenants in a real estate transaction. More specifically, it involves bringing parties together to negotiate the sale, purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, assisting in communication and contract preparation to help both sides reach a mutually acceptable agreement, earning a commission or fee for successfully facilitating the transaction. To broker real estate is to arrange or negotiate real estate deals on behalf of others for compensation. All right. I'm going to pause there and say this because it's for compensation. Not always is that compensation a commission. When you affiliate with a particular firm, your broker will have what's referred to as an office policy manual that will delineate how that is for your specific firm. Okay. Everything in real estate, as far as fees are concerned, are specific to your specific firm. All right. Remember that. While following the laws and regulations governing licensed real estate professionals. All right. So we've went through what a salesperson or a sales associate or an agent is, a broker associate or an associate broker, and a broker. I want to touch on momentarily on understanding subtle nuances in real estate speak. Licensee, a licensee can be either a salesperson, a broker associate, or a broker. A licensee is someone that is licensed under the jurisdiction, so the Georgia Real Estate Commission's licensing rules. Okay? That's all it is. Let's talk about realtor designations. When you get your real estate license, you are not a realtor. All right? People that are realtors are people that have joined the National Association of Realtors and subscribe to its code of ethics. All right? You can be a real estate licensee and not a realtor. You cannot be a realtor and not be a licensee. All right? So a designated realtor or realtor principals are the responsible parties, such as the brokers in charge, qualifying brokers, broker of record, managing brokers, supervising brokers, etc. A realtor associate. The term realtor is a designation Realtor denotes membership in the National Association of Realtors, a professional trade organization first established in 1908, whose mission was to promote professionalism within the real estate industry. The National Association of Realtors was founded on May 12th, 1908, in Chicago, Illinois. At its founding, the organization was called the National Association of Real Estate Exchanges, and it began with just 120 members, representing 19 real estate boards and one state association. The name was later changed to the National Association of Real Estate Boards in 1916, and then officially became the National Association of Realtors in 1972. So I want to break down for you real estate terms a little bit more. So where the term realtor was first used was in 1916. It was coined by Charles N. Chadbourne, which was a member of the Minneapolis Real Estate Board, to identify members of the National Association of Real Estate Boards. All right. So that was the term for what is now the National Association of Realtors. And basically, it was just a coined phrase to separate realtors from just regular state licensees. Okay. Um, the goal was to create a more distinctive term that signified professionalism, ethics, and membership in the National Association, setting its members apart from non-member real estate agents and firms. Okay. It is important to understand the distinction between state or jurisdictional license classifications, employment or affiliation titles, and realtor membership designations. Okay. I will share with you, if you have ever looked at my business card, it says managing broker. That is not a state or jurisdictional license classification. That is a position specific title for me. In Georgia, the license classification or the jurisdictional license classifications are broker, associate broker, salesperson. Okay. Now in Georgia, that broker that owns the firm is what is referred to as the qualifying broker. All right. Um, Beyond these classifications, states may use different terms to refer to specific roles or levels of responsibility within the real estate brokerage structure. So, for example, in Georgia, the principal broker, who is responsible for the overall operation of a real estate firm, is referred to as the qualifying broker. Similarly, South Carolina uses the term broker in charge to identify the broker responsible for the management and oversight of a real estate office and its affiliated licensees. In Florida, for example, while the general term for a licensed broker is simply broker, the individual designated as the primary broker for a brokerage firm holds significant legal and ethical responsibilities for the actions of all sales associates and broker associates working under them. Okay. In Florida, the term is just broker. All right. Let's talk about the real estate market. The real estate market refers to the buying, selling, and renting of land, homes, and commercial properties. Like other markets, it operates based on the principle of supply and demand. Understanding these principles helps buyers, sellers, and investors make informed decisions. All right. Supply and demand in real estate. Supply refers to the number of properties available for sale or rent in the market. Demand is the desire and ability of people to buy or rent properties. The interaction of supply and demand determines prices, availability, and market trends. When demand is higher than supply, prices tend to rise. When supply exceeds demand, prices may fall or stabilize. All right. Some factors affecting supply: labor force, availability and material cost, governmental controls and monetary policy, labor force availability and construction cost. All right. Um, let's unpack it. The construction of new homes requires workers and materials. Shortages of skilled labor or expensive building materials can limit new limit new construction, and reducing supply. Government controls and monetary policy, zoning laws, building regulations, and permits can limit or encourage new development. Interest rates and monetary policy affect developers' ability to finance new construction. Lower interest rates can encourage building by increasing supply. Labor force availability and construction costs. Shortages of workers or materials reduce building activity. High costs often passed on to buyers and renters. All right, a couple of additional supply factors. Government controls and financial policies. We've got zoning, building codes, environmental regulations, interest rates set by the Federal Reserve, affecting borrower costs. So when we've talked about, to give you a real life example, if you're aware of the market right now, and you should be because you're saying this is where you're planning to make a career or gain entry into, you're aware that there has been some different stuff going on in and as it relates to interest rate, as far as the Federal Reserve trying to lower interest rates. Interest rates set by the Federal Reserve affects borrowing costs, which is a supply factor. Okay. Then let's talk about local government actions. Land use controls and taxation policies can either encourage or discourage development. All right. All right. Factors affecting demand. Demand is shaped by characteristics of the population and the economy. Population and demographics, employment and wage levels. More people or growing families increase the need for housing. Democratic, democratic, Demographic trends like aging populations or urbanization influence what type of properties are in demand. All right. Population growth, more people, more housing needed. Demographics, age groups, family size, and lifestyle trends shape demand. Example given, retirees versus young professionals. Okay. Employment and wage levels, higher employment rates and wages increase people's ability to buy homes. Areas with strong job markets tend to have higher housing demand. Employment and wage levels, when jobs and wages are strong, people buy more homes. When they're weak, demand falls. All right, chapter summary and discussion. Key topics: real estate career opportunities, supply and demand forces. Some questions I want you to consider and think about are: what real estate career paths are you most interested in and why? What local factors in your immediate area most influence real estate supply and demand? And can you identify any recent local events or trends that have impacted your local real estate market? Let's talk about a couple of key terms: associate broker, broker, market, real estate licensor, sales associate, salesperson, supply and demand. I want you to take and make these terms, um, put them in your memory bank. All right. Some key topics that we discussed were careers in the real estate space. We talked about um, supply and demand. Right now, we're going to take a minute and talk about some financial considerations for homeowners. All right. There are tax deductions, mortgage interest deductions, property tax deductions, and points paid on mortgages, capital gains exclusions, and then additional financial benefits for homeownership, such as building equity. All right. Potential for appreciation, inflation hedge, and rental income potential. All right. Additional demand factors are lifestyle preferences, location desirability, and government policies. When we're talking about lifestyle preferences, demand is influenced by evolving lifestyle choices, such as preferences for urban living versus suburban spaces, or the desire for certain home features like smart technology or outdoor amenities. Okay. And I'll tell you this: with lifestyle preferences, you have certain groups, socioeconomic or um, millennial baby boomers, that look for different things in their spaces. Um, a well compensated millennial might look and lean more into technology and outdoor spaces, where The baby boomer generation might look more to, and let me go back. That millennial might want more urban, where that baby boomer might want more traditional homes and more of a suburban space. All right. Location desirability. Factors like proximity to employment centers, quality schools, recreational facilities, and community safety significantly impact the demand or housing in specific geographical areas. And then government policies. Government regulations such as zoning laws, property tax incentives, housing subsidies, and interest rate policies set by central banks play a crucial role in the shaping of overall housing demand. Okay. Market conditions affecting demand beyond broad economic indicators like population growth and employment rates, several dynamic market conditions directly impact the demand for real estate. Understanding these factors is crucial for both buyers and sellers in navigating the housing market. Consumer confidence, market trends, seasonal variations. All right, we're going to start with seasonal variations because we're actually entering into a period where we experience seasonal variations. So, real estate demand often follows predictable seasonal patterns. Spring and summer typically see higher demand due to favorable weather for showings and families looking to move before the school year starts. Colder months, which we're in right now, often experience a slowdown in activity. All right, let's talk about market trends. Market trends, current trends such as rising property values, low interest rates, or limited inventory, or any combination of the such, can create urgency among potential buyers. Um, a perception of a seller's market can spur demand as buyers fear being priced out or missing out on opportunities. All right. And then consumer confidence. And this is a big one right now, just where we're at in the world and the politics of the world. When consumers feel optimistic about the economy, their personal finances, and job stability, they're more inclined to make large investments like purchasing a home. High confidence often translates into increased buyer activity and a stronger housing market. All right. So there the converse is true as well. When consumer confidence is shaking or consumers feel scared, they typically don't spend, they don't buy houses. They want to wait to see how things will shake out before they jump in and commit. Economic factors affecting demand. Understanding the key economic factors that influence housing demand is crucial for analyzing real estate markets. Several factors directly impact consumers' ability and willingness to purchase homes. Those factors are employment rates, credit availability, interest rates, and income levels. Let's start with income levels. Rising income levels enhance household purchasing power, allowing more individuals and families to afford homeownership and qualify for larger mortgages, thus stimulating demand. As far as interest rates, lower interest rates on mortgages reduce the cost of borrowing, making home loans more affordable and accessible. This typically leads to an increase in housing demand. Employment rates. High employment rates indicate a healthy economy, leading to greater job security and increased consumer confidence. More people with stable jobs are likely to enter the housing market. Credit availability. The ease with which prospective buyers can obtain financing, including mortgage loans, significantly impact demand. Readily available credit with favorable terms encourages home purchases. These economic indicators collectively shape the landscape of housing demand, influencing market activity and property values. Thank you for your time and have a wonderful day.